Hello, and welcome to Under the Stars Bedtime Stories by Spectropolis. Tonight I'm going to be reading Halfpint and the Gnomes. Dawn was breaking over the Crickmore woods, and the Gnomes were gradually drifting out of their sleep, when all at the same time they began to hear some melodious chirrups coming from deep within the forest. They'd never quite heard these tweeting sounds before, and they were nothing like the other chirps of the woodland birds. If you could see into all of their homes, you would find all the little gnomes doing similar things. Some looking at each other, bewildered, and others scratching their heads. Halfpint lay in his bed for a little while, before going into his mum's room. "What is that strange sound?" he asked. "It's so unusual, and yet it doesn't hurt my ears." "Well, I don't quite know, dear," said his mum. "Perhaps we should get dressed and find out." When they were ready, they opened their front door and saw the whole village had gathered around. Mayor Freckett shook his large bell for attention, gathered everyone together, and suggested they all follow him into the Crickmore woods. Halfpint reluctantly went over to his friends Tinker, Bubblesocks, and Jojo Jingles, and held his hands over his ears. He didn't like the sound of that loud bell. Actually, he would rather not be in this big crowd. He would have liked to have stayed at home where it was quiet and not so busy. Bubblesocks and Jojo Jingles were so excited, for it seemed like they were going on a little adventure, and as they were all together, they knew they were quite safe. All the gnomes began to follow the sound of the chirps, when all of a sudden they came across 3 of the most beautiful and colourful birds they had ever seen. They were in awe of them, and their enchanting, soft and gentle tweets and twitters. Mayor Freckett was the first to speak, and asked them who they were. The birds stopped for a while, looked at each other, fluttered their wings, and in unison sang, "We are the Carey birds, we tweet and we sing. Look after those who struggle to fit in." Well, what a mysterious message this was. All the gnomes looked around. They all did kind things, didn't they? They were all mindful of each other. There was a silence for a while, before Mummy Snickles felt she had to say something. "Well, everyone, it was a very long time ago when Tinker Snickles came back from Lillian Rose's with the shiny button and the magical bell. I wonder if the bells around our village have been a bit quieter of late?" Everyone looked at each other, and they had to agree. Maybe they weren't putting as much into kindness as when they first had their bells. Mummy Snickles asked the Carey birds if they felt this was true. The Carey birds once again looked down from the tree and tweeted, "We bring a message to do a good deed for someone else, someone in need." Then the beautiful Carey birds spread their colourful wings and gracefully flew away, up into the sky, with a gentle twitter echo to, "Do a good deed, do a good deed." The gnomes could do no more. They all walked back home to have their breakfast and get to work or school, although this day they did more quietly and more thoughtfully as they wondered what the message really meant. A few days later at school, Halfpint and his friends were playing, when Bumble walked over and shouted towards Halfpint, "Oh, where's Halfpint? He's so small, I can't see him and I might accidentally tread on him. Has anyone seen him?" Ever practical, Halfpint replied, "Well, I'm right here. I know you can see me because I'm not as small as a teeny ant." Everyone giggled at Halfpint's reply, and they told Bumble not to be so unkind. Tinker Snickles said that the mayor would take away his bell if he wasn't careful. This made Bumble think again. He didn't answer back, but walked off in a huffy-puffy huff, while the other gnomelets went back to playing their game. The following day, the friends all gathered together during break time at school. They noticed that Halfpint wasn't his usual cheery self, and asked him what was wrong. "Nothing," he mumbled. He knew he was also still upset about Bumble, but didn't really know how to put it into words. "Can we help?" asked Jojo Jingles. "No," grumbled Halfpint, and he walked away to the corner of the playground. Gnome grounds are very small, but they have special little nooks and crannies full of toadstools to sit around and be quiet. Halfpint just couldn't shake this miserable emotion. His head felt like it was ready to burst, and his body felt very wibbly-wobbly. And no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't figure out why he felt like this. Bumblesocks looked at the others and said, "Something is wrong with Halfpint, but if he won't talk to us, then what can we do?" Tinker replied, "Well, we'll all just be here for him and ask him every so often. Then when he's ready, I'm sure he will let us know." Life went on over the next few weeks in the village, and the nurture gnomes were making sure they went out of their way to help each other. However, they soon heard the sound of the carey birds again, flying over the Crickmore woods with their echo tweet to "Do a good deed, do a good deed." None of the nurture gnomes could work it out. They were being extra mindful, and still the messages did not stop. Halfpint was tending to his garden patch of flowers when Tinker Snickles popped in and asked if he wanted to go with him, Bubblesocks and Jojo Jingles to see if they could find the carey birds. Halfpint thought for a while, but struggled with the sudden change of plans, so told Tinker he'd stay at home. They waved goodbye to each other, and Halfpint happily went back to his flowers. Eventually, the gnomes came to the tree, but the birds weren't around, so the friends decided to call them. Would it work? Well, it certainly did, and the carey birds fluttered and flitted to fit on a branch of the tree. Tinker asked them, "Oh, beautiful carey birds, please can you tell us more about the person that needs help? We're doing all that we can, but still you sing." In birdsong they replied, "It's someone close, it's someone near, it's someone loved, it's someone dear." Once again they flew away into the bright blue sky, twittering, "Do a good deed, do a good deed." For a brief moment, Tinker Snickles wondered if the message had anything to do with Halfpint, as he was so sad recently. The friends agreed to keep an extra eye out on him before they set off back home. That same evening, after his chores, Halfpint spoke with his mum and told her how he was feeling and asked her why he felt so different. She sat him down, spoke softly to him, and explained that yes, he was different from his friends. He experienced his surroundings in a totally unique and extra special way. Since Tinker had unknowingly sown wildflowers all around the Crickmore woods, Halfpint had taken a special interest in flowers. So his mum explained, "Each wildflower is different. They have different colours, shapes, and even the same type are not exactly the same. You have a flower that may have more or less petals than others, may be shorter or taller, but it's a flower nonetheless. And those differences are what makes them beautiful. You need to welcome and celebrate your differences and your amazing strengths, because look at how much you know about wildflowers and nature, much more than I do." Halfpint listened to everything his mum said, and she also drew pictures to help him understand. Oh, wow, how he loved those pictures. Everything seemed to slot into place, and he felt his little shoulders gently relax. Yes, he was different, but that was okay, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled. All four friends had arranged to meet up again at the edge of the Crickmore woods, underneath the old oak tree. Bubblesocks asked Halfpint if he was feeling any better, and Halfpint smiled his usual happy smile. I am, he said, and flapped his arms excitedly. He told them all about his new learnt difference. Halfpint explained that sometimes he gets a little overwhelmed. When you all chatter, I can't seem to follow what's being said, and sometimes I can feel worried. I would like it if you could help me. Tinker Snickles gave Halfpint a great big gnomey hug. Then Bubblesocks and Jojo Jingles joined in, and they laughed as they tumbled over each other. In that special moment, Halfpint felt very safe, and it made him warm and fuzzy inside. All of a sudden, and from what seemed like out of nowhere, the Carey birds flew twice around the village, chirpity-chirping. The message was for everyone, and now the caring deed is done. Word soon got around the village, and all the nurture gnomes realised that it was not down to one person to do something special, but for them all to help one gnomelet. And so they all made little changes, especially for Halfpint. At school, their teacher, Mrs. McCrankle, did extra special things for the whole class too. Even Bumble enjoyed those lessons. Halfpint liked to sit by the class door in case he needed a gnomey break, where he was allowed to go into a quiet space. This made school much more enjoyable. However, his favourite thing was a small orange squidge toy that he could play with. Wowzer! It really helped him concentrate. Mrs. McCrankle used Halfpint's interest in flowers to teach, and he was flourishing in class. He still had some moments where he would be funny and cheeky. He wouldn't be Halfpint otherwise, but he loved learning better than before. Sometimes, while she was talking, Mrs. McCrankle drew pictures. It was something they all enjoyed, especially as she couldn't draw at all, and her pictures were so funny. The whole gnome class would laugh and laugh, with all their little bells ringing together. It was a lovely sound, hearing all the gnomelets laughing. All the grown-up nurture gnomes around the village stopped what they were doing and took a moment to listen to all the laughter coming from the school. They paused and smiled as their bells also began to gently chime. They really were quite magical. The sound was carried away in the wind to a pretty cottage with a fireplace glow and a garden full of wildflowers. You called for us, you sent us three, to help a gnome feel more carefree, to understand he's special forever, and to learn that he is clever. Lily and Rose, our work is done, that special gnome can now have fun. The seed of care that we have sown means he won't feel so alone. Lily and Rose settled back in her chair, her sewing kit on her lap, and she smiled as she listened to all the distant laughter. Another sound soon joined in, and Lily and Rose watched the Carey birds as they settled on her windowsill while they sang in their tweety twitters. Lily and Rose thanked the wonderful Carey birds, and they fluttered their bright and colourful wings and glided off, getting smaller in the distance. Where were they going to next, she wondered. Lily and Rose wasn't too sure, but maybe if you listen carefully, you may hear them too one day. I hope you enjoyed listening to Halfpint and the Nurture Gnomes by the absolutely wonderful Susan Harvey. We hope you enjoy your evening and have a lovely sleep. Good night.